Our keynote speaker today, you're in for a treat. Our keynote speaker today is Bob Davies. As a college football coach, Bob helped athletes at Cal State Fullerton tap into their potential and win 2 conference championships. As a wrestling coach, Bob was also the coach for Jeff Blatnick, who overcame Hodgkin's disease to win the gold medal at the 1984 Olympics in Greco-Roman wrestling. Throughout his own life experience, coaching experience, and academic study, Bob has made himself an expert in the field of human potential, and that's why he's known as the performance coach. He's also the author of several books, multiple CD albums, and DVDs, and is one of the pioneers of the e-learning environment and has developed one of the world's first online interactive coaching portals. Bob is also the featured presenter at this afternoon's Lily 7 Leadership Workshop. Now, the Lily 7 Workshop is a separately ticketed event, but there's a few tickets still remaining. So if you'd like, following this session, please go to the on-site registration desk downstairs in Hall D to get your ticket to attend the extended Lily 7 Workshop with Bob Davies. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Bob Davies. Oh.
I tripped coming up here. Can you believe it? So good morning. So I've got 50 minutes. I'm looking for the clock. I have 50 minutes with you, and I coach people one-on-one, top of the table producers, very experienced advisors. So I also coach estate planning, asset protection attorneys. So I get to see your industry from an insider point of view. However, I don't know your set of circumstances personally. Even though I don't know your set of circumstances, what do you think the chances are that in the next 50 minutes, what you're going to experience in here about behavior can have a significant impact in your life? What do you think the chances are? High or low? Let me hear it. Let me hear it again. Actually, it's very low. It's very low that what you're going to experience is going to go any further than entertainment. Well, then you might ask, then why bother? Well, here's the why bother. The why bother is because it's possible. And also, can you ask them to start the clock? The clock hasn't started yet. Thank you. So it's possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to simplify. So I'm going to ask you to do this. Put blinders on. And for the next 50 minutes or so, I'm going to ask you to think of an area of your life that you would like to improve. And keep that area in mind as I give you this behavioral presentation. There's going to be one takeaway. I've simplified this one takeaway. This one takeaway is a behavioral dynamic that you didn't have when you walked in the room that you will have when I'm finished with this 50-minute presentation. So here we go. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's get to work. So the first question I have for you, is this person unmotivated? Is there such a thing as an unmotivated person? So imagine you're working, you've got a great client, you've got a package together with an attorney where you have a super free offshore trust, you've got a very high 6-figure commission to you on a premium finance insurance policy all put together, you've got this package for this high net worth family, and all of a sudden their accountant doesn't understand the value of the insurance, they unwind the deal, and you're sitting there and you say, oh, I did so much work on this, and somebody else outside of my control is making this go away, and you've recruited some people that you think are going to join NAIFA, and they no-show on your appointment with them, and you've got some disappointment. You've got somebody who can't qualify for life insurance. They failed their medical. You've got all these disappointing things. You've got a strategic alliance event, and half of your alliance member didn't mail their database for the event. Now you have low turnover. You've got a call from the principal about your son at school. You come home, you're absolutely exhausted. So how many of you have a favorite chair? So imagine you go and you sit back in your favorite chair, you are exhausted. Now, is this person unmotivated? The answer is no. There is no such thing as an unmotivated person. This person is very highly motivated to conserve energy. Now, I'm not being facetious when I say this. I'm not being facetious. So your spouse asks you to help the kids with homework, you just say, I'm just too exhausted. Your buddy calls you, you're an avid golfer, says, I've got a tee time, come on, let's play some golf. You say, I'm just too exhausted. What is this person paying attention to? They're highly motivated to conserve energy, but watch what happens when you change what their reference point is. When you change what they pay attention to, watch what happens. All of a sudden, they smell smoke, they see flames, they grab their favorite kid, and they run out of a burning house. Now, they go from being absolutely lethargic to instantly hyper-energized. How did they do that? Well, when you shift, your ability to shift what you're paying attention to, what you're in reference to is a direct correlation between your degree of success. It's about what are you in reference to, what are you paying attention to. So, how about this? What would you say about this? Is A darker than B? Square A darker than B. So you look at this, and how many of you by raise of hands would say square A is darker than square B? Let me see. I go out and I look back at this. I don't know what your psychological mumbo jumbo is. A is darker than B. So how certain are you that A is darker than B? How many of you are 100% certain A is darker than B? How many of you would put $100 on A being darker than B? Would you pass that $100 over to the aisles and just collect it and bring it up because you're going to lose it? They are identical. I know it looks like A is darker than B, and they're not. So it's all about what it's in reference to. A is in reference to the white spaces in the white square, so it looks to our eyes as dark. B is in reference to the dark spaces, so it looks to our eyes as light. What I did was I took a picture of this and I cut out B, I put it right on top, and I videotaped myself moving it and changing what it's in reference to. Watch how this looks like it changes colors right in front of your eyes. Check this video out. Immediately, it looks like it changes colors. It never changes colors at all. It's the same always, but our perception changes based on what it's in reference to. When I change what it's in reference to, it changes my reality, it changes my perception. And so absolutely, reality is in the mind of the observer. If you change what you're paying attention to, you change your reality, you change your opportunities, and I'm going to give you a specific way to do that. And so everything that I do, and I've been in this business ever since I was a college football coach and I left in 1983. I've always been a scientific researcher of how do you get an individual to tap into the highest level of their God-given talent. That's always been the driving force. It's all about influencing how you think, because that influences your physiology and that influences your actions that you take. And it also goes the other way around as well. Actions that you take influence how your physiology influence how you think. It has to do with how the human brain works. That's the key. So I want to show you an analogy of the human brain. But I'm going to ask you to participate with this. And before I ask you to do that, let me give you test number 1 for this morning. And this will show me how well you can follow directions. So you ready for test number 1? Here we go. Both hands fully extended. Go ahead. And rolls at the back of your hands are facing each other. Take your left hand and go over the top and interlock your fingers. And now you should have your left thumb on top. So independently move your left thumb and your pinky independent. Let me see. Watch here. The thumb and pinky independent. Now, if you haven't been deceived, you should be able to do this. Okay, go ahead. Some difficulty there? Okay. Well, actually, let me give you a different analogy of the human brain. Make a fist with both hands and bring your knuckles together so that the heels of your hands are touching. And then roll it up and take a look. That represents your knuckles represents the outer cortex. If you open it up and you look inside, buried deep inside the fingers represents the limbic area of the brain, left and right. Roll it back up and the wrists represent the brain stem, autonomic nervous system. And if you look at the top again, that's about the size of the human brain. Well, you might think, well, that's pretty small. Actually, the human brain has about the size of a dinner napkin surface area. However, if the skull had to be big enough to house that large of a brain, I can only, let me tell you, before even this, the human brain has estimated at 100 billion neurons, nerve cells. Each individual neuron is capable of tens of thousands of interactions, so we have trillions of interactions. The human brain is considered to be more complicated than a Donald Trump hair comb over. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've heard. Anyway, so this is the analogy of the human brain. And what happens is if the human brain head had to be big enough to cover this kind of a surface area, I can only imagine that childbirth would be worse than it already is. But what happens that's very specific to human beings is that there is a fold. As the brain is growing, it folds in on itself, so you get a large surface area folded in together into a small volume. That's very specific to the human species. So look at the brain again, and you have the outer cortex. This is how we plan. This is how we analyze. This is how we inhibit. You have the inner limbic area of the brain, which is the emotional area of the brain, and then you have the brainstem, which is autonomic nervous system, heart rate, and breathing. So the key is understanding that it's all about our thinking. It's all about influencing what we pay attention to. And where is this being taught? The interesting thing is it's not being taught. It's not being taught. How do you self-manage? It's not being taught. It used to surprise me. I would ask myself, why isn't this mainstream? When I speak to groups about how to manage your own brain, why isn't it mainstream? Why is it that they're hearing it for the first time? And here's what I found out. Because nobody else has the same kind of background that I have. When I was a college football coach, my orientation was all about human performance and the science of performance. And I developed this program when I went as a head coach at Caltech in Pasadena. I had an opportunity to research a guy by the name of Roger Sperry. Roger Sperry won the Nobel Prize in 1982 for his right and left brain research. One of the most premier researchers in the world. And I had other help in developing what you're going to experience, and that was a guy by the name of Steve Mariucci. When I got to Cal State Fullerton, you may know who he was. He coached Brett Favre. He was a head coach for the San Francisco 49ers, Detroit Lions. Now he's a broadcaster. And him and some other folks, we put together something for Cal State Fullerton, which was, here's our dilemma. This is the athletic ability of all of our athletes. This is the athletic ability of everyone we play. How are you going to win? Everyone's better than you are. Only way you're going to win is to tap into the highest level of your God-given talent, catch your opponents when they don't. And that's what we did, and we had this, and that's what led me into professional speaking, is doing this for our boosters and doing it for other companies. So the ability to influence what you pay attention to is absolutely key. What you're in reference to. So what is this line? When you look at this, what is this line? Concave or convex? Well, I don't know what I'm hearing, but I hope that you're not able to answer this. You have to take a stand. So let's take a stand on the A side. Now what is this line? Now you need to know the difference between concave and convex. So here's how a perception is formed. A perception is formed by looking at the facts, looking at the evidence. Because I tell people all the time, and I'll tell you this too, you have far more capacity to create the circumstances and events in your life than you are aware of. Now, when I say that, on an unconscious level, there's going to be some resistance to that. You don't know me, you don't know my circumstances, but think about it, because this program and the Lilly program is really proof of concept. You have far more capacity to create the circumstances and events in your life than you are aware of. So let's see how you are the way you are and why you think the way you think. How are perceptions formed? How are beliefs formed? Well, what happens is you have to take a stand. So A looks at this line and says, well, it's bending towards me at the top. It's bending towards me at the bottom. It's bowing away from me in the center. That's the definition of a concave line. So how a belief is formed is by gathering evidence, looking at the facts, interpreting what you see, and gathering the evidence. Now, if I were to go to A and say this is a convex line, I'm going to be having some difficulty here, aren't I? Not that A isn't open-minded, not that A isn't willing to re-examine, but it's just that all of the evidence proves that that point of view is absolutely true and correct. So even if A is open-minded and A says, well, let me examine it. It's bending towards me at the top, towards me at the bottom, away from me in the center. I'm sorry, you're wrong. This is a concave line. Resistance. Resistance. And all of you, all of us, we have resistance to change. We have resistance to evolution. Now here's B. B does the same thing. B looks at the same facts. The line never changes. The line is bending away from B at the top, away from B at the bottom, towards B in the center. That's the definition of a convex line. So the question is, what's the truth? Is this a concave line or is it a convex line? Well, if you're taking any notes, would you write this down? The truth is not relevant, or the truth doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is, does what you're paying attention to, or does what you're in reference to, support you in taking the actions that you said you wanted to take? I'll say that again. The only thing that matters is, not what the truth is, the only thing that matters is, are the actions you're taking are what you're paying attention, nice grammar, is what you're paying attention to supporting you in taking the actions that you said you were going to take. And so, again, it's a matter of what are you paying attention to. So watch this. And you might want to come in close on this on the camera. So I show you my hands are empty. I snap a finger, make a fist, and pull out a scarf. See how that works? Just fine, right? I'm going to make that scarf disappear. Make a fist, and I'm tucking it into my fist. It's not going in my sleeves, in my ring, in my watch. The scarf is going, and you can see the scarf has disappeared. Right now, what you're probably saying is, what a talented individual. Well, I'm going to show you how I did this only under one condition. Standard magician's trick, if it gets out that I showed you this, that'll make my card disappear. You have to promise to keep this confidential. Will you keep this confidential? I'm sure of that. It'll be on the NAIFA website by the time I get back to my office. I show you my hands are empty. Raise a hand if the truth for you is my hands are empty. Raise a hand if you see empty hands. Let me see. Raise a hand if you see empty hands. So you can't trust your interpretation of what you see. I know it looks like my hands are empty, but I'm wearing what's called a vernet thumb tip. This is how this is done. Inside of the thumb tip is the scarf, right there. I sell these on my website for $10, includes the scarf. So if you get one of these and you go to your colleagues and they say, well, what did you learn at the NAIFA conference? Watch this. Just make sure that you practice, because this is a dead giveaway. My hands are empty. What's that? Now, I'm about ready to make a major point. I show you this time that my hands are empty. What's the only thing you see? Sticks out like a sore thumb. The point is, reality isn't what's different. The environment isn't what's different. The marketplace isn't what's different. What's different is what you're paying attention to. So how certain are you that square A was darker than square B? How certain are you? Well, let me ask you this question. Do dogs love bones? What do you think? No, they don't. They love meat. They settle for bones. So the question for you, put those blinders on again, the question for you, I'm talking to you one-on-one, is where in your life are you settling? Where in your life are you living in resignation, believing that you're doing the best that you can be doing and that you're absolutely certain of that? Because that's the basis of the resistance that is non-conscious when I say you have far more capacity to create the circumstances and events in your life than you are aware of. So let's take a look at this. Again, it's about what are you in reference to? How are you thinking? And so one of the things, well, there's two things that I'm proud of about what I do. One is that my program is based on laws of science. I have dedicated myself to studying the neuropsychology of achievement, of how the brain works. And here's a Larry Cahill, UCI, there's a goat brain, that's a human brain. And astrophysicist Paul Davies, no relationship, same last name. And anyway, the key is that elite performers, and the second thing that my program is based on is best practices of elite performers. Elite performers don't always wake up thinking what a great day it is to be alive. Sometimes they wake up and they're kind of aggravated. How many of you have ever been aggravated before? Sometimes they wake up and they're kind of whiny. How many of you whine? Any whiners? When their thinking doesn't support them, they take an opposite point of view. And I call that flipping. It's also referred to as the stop technique. So let me give you an example. I stand in front of you and I say, health is my number one value. I love what Ralph Waldo Emerson says. He says, what you do speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you say. I say I'm going to get up at 3:50 in the morning, I'm going to exercise. I wake up at 3:50, the alarm rings, and do I get up and go exercise? It depends on what I'm in reference to. It depends on what I'm paying attention to. If I'm paying attention to, my back hurts. I'm tired. I've worked out 18 of the last 21 days. Equally as important in a fitness program is rest. I need to sleep in. Now that might be absolutely true, but what did I just ask you to write down about the truth? The truth isn't relevant. The truth doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is if that's what I'm paying attention to, I don't get up and I don't take the action. And so here's the flipping technique. The flipping technique is to stop and flip to an opposite point of view, one that compels the action. So the alarm rings at 3 o'clock, 3:50 rather, and I'm in bed and I'm negotiating and I'm tired. Stop. Flip. 100% of the time when I start my day off with a workout, I have a better day. I go downstairs to get my workout gear and I catch myself whining. It's cold outside. Stop. Flip. 100% of the time, I have a better day when I started off with a workout. No matter what it is in your business or your health or your personal life, if your thinking isn't supporting you and you shut it down and flip to a thought that compels the action, you will get more done. The stop technique is fantastic. If I were to stop right here and have this be my one takeaway, it would be worth all of our time and expenses. There's only one problem with this, and that is you won't do this. You won't use it. You won't stop the thought and flip to an opposite compelling thought. How do I know you won't do that? Because it requires too much energy. Our brain, from 5 million years of evolution, is an energy conservation organ. Our brain, which is this 3-pound organ, which is only 2% of the body weight, takes up 20% of the resources. Very high energy intensive. The part of the brain that would have you stop your thinking, do the harder thing, and change your thoughts, that's right behind your eyebrows, called the orbital frontal cortex. It requires a tremendous amount of energy for your orbital frontal cortex to do the stop technique. Let me give you an example of how the brain has evolved so that it's going to stop you from using a lot of energy. So you ready for test number 2? How many of you are saying, no more tests? All right, here we go. Let's take a look at this. It's a quiz. Dennis is looking at Jody. Jody is looking at Mark. Dennis is married. Mark is not. Is a married person looking at an unmarried person? Your choices are yes, A, B, no, or C. Can't be determined. You're missing some information. So Dennis is married looking at Jody. Jody's looking at Mark. Mark's not married. Is a married person looking at an unmarried person? As a group, what is your solution? Most groups will say C. And I ask them, what information are you missing? And what do they say? They say they can't solve this because they don't know Jody's status. And that is not correct. It doesn't make a difference whether Jody's married or not. The question is a married person looking at an unmarried person? And in all cases, the answer is yes. So let's check it out. Let's say Jody's married. The question is a married person looking at an unmarried person? If Dennis is married looking at Jody who's married, that doesn't meet the criteria. But if Jody's married, she's looking at Mark who's not married, then yes, a married person is looking at an unmarried person. Let's say that Jody is unmarried. Then right away, it meets the criteria. Dennis is married, looking at Jody, who's unmarried. A married person is always looking at an unmarried person, whether Jody is married or not. Do you see how our brain, you know what happened just now? Your brain hijacked you. How many of you thought C by raise your hands? Let me see the hands. Now, nice and loud, would you repeat after me? My brain, let's hear it, was just hijacked. Where else is this happening in your life? The answer is everywhere. We are energy conservation organisms. And so it's only a matter of how do we influence this when our brain is designed to conserve energy? Well, what do you see there? This is years of evolution of genetic coding so that we see a square as opposed to 4 Pac-Men. We are designed to see patterns. It's so vital that we understand how to influence what we pay attention to. And so if you use the stop technique, see if you can get yourself to do it. If you do it, it'll work. I wouldn't count on it. Now, let's go and let's talk about this is a universal principle. It's called a law. This is, what I'm about to give you, is the principle that influences all of us in terms of the choices that we make. But before I give you this, are there any psychics in the room? Not psychotics, psychics. All right, so this is my remote control. I'm going to hold it up above eye level, let go of my grip on this. What do you predict is going to happen? It's going to fall. But you're not a psychic, so how can you make a prediction of something in the future? You must be relying on some type of a principle. Are you? What's the principle? Gravity. What if you don't believe in gravity? What if you think that gravity is a NASA hoax put on the population to control the masses, and we never went to the moon, we don't have a Mars rover? Does your belief in the principle matter? The answer is no. We can test it, I can drop it, and it falls. We can't see it, but we can see the influence of it. And what I'm about to put on the screen is just like that, in terms of it's a universal principle that dictates to us what we are in reference to and what we pay attention to. And so here it is. All human performance is the avoidance of pain or the seeking of comfort. This is it. This is what dictates how we orient ourselves And how we have, I'll share more detail about this in the Lily session about a narrow bandwidth of perceptual ability, but this is how we default. Our limited perception is out there searching not for opportunities, but searching for threats. All human performance is the avoidance of pain or the seeking of comfort. One of the best ways for me to share this with you is to talk about myself and something that happened to me. Now, the speaker's story, my circumstances aren't what's important to you. What's important to you is how does this affect your behavior, your performance? But anyway, I have a couple things going on. First of all, I have ADHD. How many are familiar with ADHD? Familiar with that? I wear this label with pride. ADHDers are entrepreneurs, movers and shakers. If you have children with ADHD, that's not a bad thing. I also have bulimia. I don't wear this label with pride. At least I can say, at least I don't have dyslexia. Your subconscious mind is cracking up because I just rearranged the letters to dyslexia. But anyway, the way that I handle my ADHD is with structure and routine. So here's what it's like when I'm home. I get up at 3:50, I go to the gym. That's my car, I have a parking place. Structure and routine. If somebody's in my parking place, I'm a little bit aggravated about that because they're interrupting my routine. I'm going to find out who they are and what time they get in because they're in my parking place. And then I go inside. This is my locker. It's one of these, LA Fitness is a locker. You can put locks, they're empty lockers. Can you imagine what it's like to go into the gym and somebody's in your locker? That is incredibly aggravating. It's a tremendous interruption to my routine. And I'm going to find out again, who are they? Who's in my locker? And this is the equipment that I work on. This is the lane when I swim. I swim in this lane. Can you imagine somebody's in my lane? I would have to change my routine and swim in another lane. And right there is the tubs, the jets on the hot tub that I use. And that's my shower with the best water pressure. And when I go to breakfast, I say it's going to be the greatest day ever, or the best it could be is a good day. What's the criteria? I look through the window. That's my booth, sitting that seat facing that direction. And one day I was on the road for 7 days. I read the newspaper every day. I had 7 newspapers with me. And I go into the restaurant, and sure enough, somebody's in my booth. The people behind the counter, they're sad. I said, why didn't you reserve it for me? But I've got a backup booth. I'm not obsessed about this. So I go to my backup booth, and I spread everything out. They got up and leave. They got up and leave. Write that down for good grammar today. They got up and left. What did I do? I gathered everything up, and as I'm walking over to my booth, I said, this is not OCD. It should be CDO anyway. The light is better over here. Now, when I'm on the road, I lose my routine. So I really heavily rely on routine. When I'm on the road, I lose that routine. I'm going to tell you about something that happened about 30 years ago. I'm going to say it as if it happened recently. So I was going cross country. Take this journey with me. I'm going from Los Angeles International to Newark for a program on the East Coast. And all I had to eat is what they serve you on the airplane. Can we talk about that for a second? They gave me a box of raisins this big, this big. I looked at the flight attendant and I said, all these for me? Do I have to share this with anyone? They gave me a bagel this big. I thought people were going to think I'm exaggerating. I kept it and I took a picture of it. That's it. That's what I had to eat cross country. I wanted that, I didn't get it, right? I'm absolutely starving. And so what drives human behavior? What drives human perception? What drives what I pay attention to, what I'm in reference to? I'm in reference to the highest level of pain that I perceive. So when I get into my hotel room, what's the highest level of pain? It's the hunger. So in this narrow bandwidth of perceptual ability, what do I pay attention to? The minibar. I go over to the minibar, and I open it up. First thing I see is a bag of M&Ms. I turned it over. I want to see how many calories in the bag. Look at this. That says 240 calories. But that's not what's important. What's important is how many servings in the bag. If the bag is 2 servings, you have to multiply 2 times 240. Look at this. That says serving size is 1 pack. This entire pack is 1 serving. And so I take my calorie chart out. If you can't measure, you can't manage. I'll give this to you fast, and then down into book signing, I give it to you slower. Your body weight times 10 is how many calories you can have on a daily basis, and you're not going to lose weight or gain weight. 3,500 calories in a pound divided by 7 days is 500. From that first number, you lose 1 pound a week. I'm sitting at 1,000 calories. I can have that bag of M&Ms, and there was so much love in that bag of M&Ms. And then I want you to visualize the transformation I just went through. Visualize a shark in a feeding frenzy. It is ripping tissue. There's blood everywhere. There's debris everywhere. And so I open up. The next thing I see are chocolate chip cookies. I am now getting out of control. I would never eat chocolate chip cookies at home, but I ripped that bag open. Here's Oreo cookies. I ripped that. Right behind there is a bag of barbecue flavored potato chips. I ripped that open. One in slow motion. I caught it midair. Right behind it is a regular flavored potato chips. I ripped that. Here's a jar of peanuts. I just happened to glance at how many calories in the jar. 1,500 calories. I ate the entire jar. Here's a box of Cracker Jacks. I wonder what the prize is. Now I see these rows of candy bars. I intend to eat just one. Then it goes to eat one at a time. Then it goes to eat all of them as fast as I possibly can. And now I have one of nature's principles called inertia. Any body in motion will remain in motion unless acted on by an external force. This almost destroyed my momentum. It's one of those Rice Krispie and marshmallow squares and saran wrap. I couldn't get the wrap off fast enough. I took a bite. I hated it. It was terrible. But I ate it all. I ate everything in the minibar. And then I had a Diet Coke. 30 plus years ago, I had a defining moment. Something happened. This is the first time that I didn't step back from my circumstances and go victim and blame everybody else. I didn't blame the economy. I didn't blame my clients. I didn't blame other people. I said, it's me. My whole life is about working up to a comfort zone and getting uncomfortable and avoiding. My whole life is avoiding pain and seeking comfort. And then I said this. I'm going around teaching success principles. I'm not successful. I was 60 pounds overweight. I wasn't in a relationship. Nobody would have me. And I said, I'm a fraud. Now, I ask you, no judgment. Where are you a fraud? And if you're saying that you're committed to something and you're not taking action, that's being a fraud. Not good or bad, so observe without judgment. And I said, here's what I realized. I learned how to coach an athlete, how to coach our team, to tap into the highest level of their God-given talent and ability and give the best version of themselves, their best effort in short sprints, one play at a time. The result was the process. The end result was 2 conference championships. I had learned how to teach someone else to do it. I hadn't learned how to apply it myself. I needed more research. I got more research. My next trip, something changed. I told 5 people on my next trip, if I go in the minibar, I'll give you $250, $250, $250, $250, $250. What's that come to? $1,250. So I'm going cross country. I am absolutely starving. What makes it into this narrow bandwidth of perceptual ability that is genetically coded to find and perceive my highest level perceived pain and compel me to avoid that pain by whatever means necessary, as if my life depends on it? That's how our genetic coding is. And so I go cross country. What's the highest level perceived pain? It is the hunger. I'm in the hotel room. What's the solution? It's the minibar. So as I'm walking over to the minibar, like every other trip, binging on the road, something happens. When I get over to the minibar, my brain does what it is genetically coded to do, recognizes a higher level pain of the $1,250, and I step away from the minibar. And it was easy. Would you write this word down, please? Write this phrase down. Instincts trump intention. Instincts trump intentions. So if I have an air puff gun and I blow air into your eyes, what will your eyelids do? They're going to blink. Now this time you know it's coming. I'm going to blow air into your eyes. Do not blink. You know it's coming. So I puff air into your eyes. What will your eyelids do? They're going to blink. Instincts trump intentions. My next trip, I go cross country. I am starving. Get to the hotel room. What do I pay attention to? The minibar. As I go over to the minibar, same thing. I have a higher level perceived pain. I went from having this be something that I was out of control to have this be a non-issue. It blew me away. I was absolutely certain, just like you were certain that square A it was darker than square B, I was absolutely certain that I couldn't weigh less than 210 pounds. My last weigh-in was 175. It's mind shifts, paradigm shifts. It's about understanding how the brain works. And so what I had that was different, this is the magic takeaway that I have for you, and we're going to deepen this in a little. I had a specific commitment. This was different. I had a specific commitment that I wasn't going to go in a minibar, and I had accountability. This is called behavioral contracting, and this is how you can take this today from entertainment into impact. Now, you've probably had some great best practices if you've gotten together with other advisors that are top in what they do. You've learned some great speakers, some takeaway actions. Now it's a matter of going back and what are you going to be in reference to? Are you going to be in reference to the actions that you intend to take, or are you going to be in reference to the crisis and the interruptions and the priorities that are going to throw themselves at you? We are genetically coded to favor being in reference to our threats, not our opportunities. And so, here's the elite performance formula. The one takeaway: specific commitment, specific declaration, plus accountability. This is it. Now, accountability. Accountability, if you embrace accountability, do you know what's possible for NAIFA? How about each member recruiting 5 members next year and reaching your 40,000 membership and having your problem solved? That's a possibility. But what's missing, and when I've spoken at the States and I've had a chance to visit with the leadership, what's missing is accountability. Accountability is a very misunderstood concept. It's not somebody trying to get you to do something that you don't want to do. Accountability is something we all need, and we can't provide it for ourselves because, again, in Lily, I'm going to show you how the brain works to show you that we are so compelled to avoid being uncomfortable regardless of what our intentions are. Accountability has 2 parts. The first part is the check-in. Someone outside of yourself checks in with you. Did you do what you said you would do? Did you make your list? Did you make your calls? And then, this is the controversial part, but the absolutely essential part: the enforceable consequence for non-performance. It's the conversation of the carrot and the stick. Yes, the carrot. Everybody wants to go to la-la land and say, oh, give incentives. Yes, the carrot will incentivize people who are in rote occupations. Put this bolt here and screw that in, this bolt. Yes, carrots help there. The carrot is not going to bring you past your comfort zone. The reward is not going to rewire the habits of your brain. It is the stick, the penalty, that's going to tap into the instinct of avoiding the highest level of pain, and that will create a new neurological wiring, a new habit. So here's the application. You know, remember I asked you if this, what the chances are going from beyond entertainment into impact, right? It was low, but it was possible. Now this has been entertaining, hasn't it? Don't you just love me? To take it into impact, do the following. It's about 7 days. Over the next 7 days, you're getting this on Monday, so a 7-day period of time, the moment you wake up on Monday to the time you go to bed on Sunday, is your 7-day, psychologists call this schedule for reinforcement. There's something magical about the number 7. 7 days in a week, 7 numbers in a phone number, 7 fingers and toes on a butcher. Something magical about the number 7. Now, a specific commitment. So what you can do right now on your business card is you can write down one activity that you want to get done by Sunday that you know you wouldn't do unless you were held accountable to do it, but you're capable of doing it, and then have a consequence for non-performance. It could be a fine, you can pay $100, it can be something distasteful, it can be a number of different things as a consequence, but the key is to use that stick, to use that penalty, to use behavioral contracting. And there's never an excuse for not having someone else to hold you accountable. I'll hold you accountable. Send me what you're going to do, info@bobdavies.com, and I'll hold you accountable. $100 if you don't do what you say you're going to do. And I promise you that will change what you're in reference to. Because the instinct is you're going to avoid the highest level perceived pain. Without an intervention, the highest level perceived pain is going to be embedded in the activity. And so you're going to be instinctually driven to avoid that, but if you leverage that, we can't change our avoidance instinct. We're going to be driven to avoid the highest level of perceived pain. 5 million years of evolution has our brain coded to recognize the highest level of perceived pain, and we avoid it, but we can leverage this. And so if I have the highest level of pain be the consequence for non-performance, I will be driven to take that action to avoid the penalty. That's how this works. Whether it's non-conscious or not, you will find that you will get yourself to do that action that you probably wouldn't have done. So here's an example. I'll use myself as an example because I know you have to be so careful. I'm in a networking function and I see the person of my dreams. So how many of you in the audience are single? Let's see. Single in the audience? How many of you were at one time single? Let's see those people. All right, so there's the person of my dreams. I'm with my buddy across the room and I say, you ever meet somebody and just know that's it? I could just tell. That's the person that I want. That's the person I could just feel that this is going to be great rapport. I'm going to go talk to her. You tell your buddy, I'm going to go introduce myself to my future wife. So as you're going over there, your brain does what it's designed to do. Recognize the highest level perceived pain. So you have a neural network, a dense bundle of neurons that are together that remember the last time you were rejected and how humiliating it was and how horrible it was, and your brain slides off of your intention into the natural road of avoidance, and as you're going over, you remember that rejection and you just make a left and you say, I'll talk to her later, she's busy right now. And nobody wins, nobody's happy, and you have protected yourself, which you are genetically coded to do. It is not your fault. That's what we are genetically coded to do. But let's do something different. Let's use the one takeaway, the behavior contracting. So think about something that you want to get yourself to implement from this conference. Write it down. Tell somebody else, I'm going to do this, and here's the consequence if I don't. So in this example, I tell my buddy, see that beautiful woman over there? I'll get here, take this $100 bill. Hold on to it. I'm going to go introduce myself to her. We'll swing back around. We'll say hi to you. And if I don't do that, if I check it out, if I don't do it, you keep the $100. If I do it, you give it back to me. Now I have a behavioral contract. And so I'm walking over to this beautiful woman. My brain continues to do what it's genetically coded to do to make sure that I'm avoiding the highest level of perceived pain. And something else is happening here. I have leveraged what the highest level of pain is. Now, instead of the possibility of the memory about being embarrassed and how bad it felt, what is being electrically stimulated is avoiding pain, still avoiding pain. I'm not going to lose that $100. And I go and I introduce myself to that woman and I find out that she was interested in me as well. We turn around, we wave to my buddy, he gives me back the $100. Everybody is happy. Behavioral contracting made me do it, and everybody lives well long after. So how about you? So I hear a lot about, here's another one. Clean out my garage by Sunday. So this is what this person's garage looks like. My wife would look at that and say, what's wrong with that? But anyway, now how did he hold it? He held it like this. He wasn't getting it done because the activity was a higher threshold of perceived pain. He would only do it on the weekend. He didn't want to take time on his weekend to spend time cleaning out a garage. There wasn't any consequence whatsoever. And so what we walk around in our lives, this is what blows me away. We teach people, here's what you do. Here's how you do it. Now go do it. But that now go do it is all about how your brain is neurologically operating, how your brain is firing. And what we realize today with brain plasticity is that we have control over how our brain is firing. So let's exercise some of that control. This time I tell a buddy, I give you $100 again, and if I don't, he tells me, I'll give you $100 if I don't clean out that garage this Saturday, and now he's leveraged. Instead of the deepest level of pain being the activity itself, the deepest level of pain is the consequence. We're compelled to avoid the highest level of perceived pain, and so he cleans out the nice garage, and what he found was it took less time to do it than he expected. It was easy. And this is what you're going to experience as well. And everybody's going to love you, and nobody knows that what you're doing is a behavior contract. And so each person recruit 5 new members. I'll talk about this in a little, the intentions and the actual performance, the dynamics that separate this. And so this is your intention. You intend to do this, and you're going to get a list of non-members. You're going to get a list of non-renewed members. You're going to look at your center of influence. You're going to make phone calls. You're going to make follow-up calls. One day each month, you're going to recruit 1 new member. You say you're going to do this. You intend to do this. Do you actually take the action? Well, most likely, with this narrow bandwidth of perceptual ability that humans have, you're not designed to pay attention to this. You're designed to pay attention to these obstacles, these interruptions, these crises, these priorities that are in your everyday business and everyday life. However, if you have, and you probably have this as, it's just I can't get people to change, and I can't make people do what's best for their industry. It's just not fair that our industry works so hard to protect their lifestyle. They're not participating in it. It's just, you have the activity as more painful until you leverage it with a consequence. And I promise you that if you make a commitment to take an action in for the association in recruiting, and if you're held accountable to it. I forget which state that I was in where I had some extra time with the leadership. What I saw is exactly what I'm explaining. There was no accountability to the actions that people were committing to take. And people think that, well, if I make this commitment and I make it out loud public, then I'm doing pretty good. But that's only half of it. You've got to have the accountability, and the accountability means a consequence for non-performance. So, what would stop you? Now, I've given you something really quickly here in 50 minutes. What would stop you from using it? Fear of what? What do you see behind me? It's not fear of nickels or dimes. It's fear of change. And I'm going to tell you that there is a physiological impact. We're wired in. Homeostasis is called. Stay the same. Remember Alonzo Mourning, the Miami basketball player, had a kidney transplant? What's the body designed to do to the new kidney? Resist it, reject it. Homeostasis, stay the same, genetically coded to stay the same. Well, if you visualize genetic coding, we all have a set of genes that we're born with. We can't do anything about this set of genes. However, how these genes are expressed, what genes are turned on or turned off, is subject to our behavior. My mother died of diabetes complications when she was 54 years old. I would say it's good to say that I have predisposition towards diabetes. But it's my behavior that dictates whether those genes are turned on or turned off. And I can live my life, visualize a row of CDs. That's your genetic coding. But you listen to one or you listen to the other. If you never open that up and listen to it, it doesn't impact you even though you have it. That's how our genetic coding is. And so with that example I was going to give you, it'll come back to me. But anyway, a study was done. Let me close with this. A study was done about the genetic coding of a human being and a chimpanzee. And what they found was there's 1.2% difference. 1.2% difference, turn it around, 98.8% identical genetic coding between a human being and a chimpanzee. But look at the significant difference in the outcome. A small difference, significant outcome. It's called the butterfly effect. A butterfly flaps its wings in one area of the world, creates a tornado in another area of the world. A small input into a system creates a major change. And so let's look at another example, because what I'm sharing with you is a small change. So here is something. The average baseball player hits .250, which is 3 hits every 12 time at bat, and makes about $1 million. Now let's contrast that to the superstar. The superstar hits .333. Now that is significantly higher than the average, isn't it? But how does the superstar get there? The superstar makes about $24 million. Is the superstar significantly better than the average? It gets there with one more hit every 12 times at bat. And so it's just a little bit better. It's the small things. When we coach that at Cal State Fullerton, it's the details, it's the small things, it's the attitude, it's the commitment, it's the activities, it's the accountability. When we coach that, we won 2 conference championships. We maximized the expression of the talent that we had. And that's what I've been doing ever since with business professionals, showing them how to maximize the talent and express it of what they already have. And I'll end with this, I love this phrase, vision. Vision is having an acute sense of the possible. It is seeing what others don't see. And when those with similar vision are drawn together, something extraordinary occurs. And I've seen this happen in my life. You know, go back to, I have 4 minutes. What can I do with 4 minutes? I've seen this happen in my life where I have held on to beliefs that I thought were absolutely true. Going back, just like you could swear that A is darker than B. And I keep on going to my health because my health, it just blows me away. I'm in 4 years of weighing less than 180. When I learned how to avoid flour and sugar and I learned how to have a mindset that supports that, I broke through what I thought was possible. Well, what in your life do you believe you can't do? Where in your life are you living in resignation, believing that you're doing the best that you can be doing given these circumstances? And I want to emphasize, don't buy into that. Don't accept that as being true. You do have far more capacity to create the circumstances and events in your life than you are aware of. So I would urge you to make a behavioral contract with somebody else in this conference. Bring your card up to me, I'll hold you accountable. Remember, $100, it's due Sunday. Make a behavior contract, and what that will do is it will change what you pay attention to. It will change your reference. And if you just get yourself to do one thing this week that you wouldn't have ordinarily done, and then next week, get yourself to do one thing with a behavior contract that you know you wouldn't have done, and then next week, now you have the law of accumulative effect where over time something significant will happen. So I'm looking forward to the Lily session, which is what I'm going to show you more about how habits are formed. I'm going to show you something that just blows me away every time I talk about it, and that is why it looks unbearable to change a habit and how you go from unbearable to uncomfortable to unstoppable. All of us are capable of rewiring our brain. It is the fantastic discovery of brain plasticity, and it's just a very exciting field. I'm excited about being able to share this with you because the results are instant and the results reinforce themselves every week. I'll see you down in the bookstore. Thank you so much for having me be a part of your conference. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That concludes our session. Bob Davies will be available to sign his book in the NAIFA Marketplace in 20 minutes. Lily 7 workshop tickets are on sale at the on-site registration desk. Visit the NAIFA Expo downstairs in Hall D to enjoy a full schedule of expert ideas workshops. And lunch will be served at 11:30 a.m. Bring your lunch ticket from your registration packet.